Hello, thank you for watching How Do I Make a Restaurant Inventory List? Avoid wasting money, still meeting demand. What is considered inventory for a restaurant? Inventory information is only useful if it contains critical data. Having access to your restaurant's most important information will help you make smart decisions for your business. Actual inventory levels must be consistently physically counted and compared to amounts listed in the software. Corrections in the software must be made if there's a discrepancy between the two. Any restaurant software tools will help you keep track of inventory. However, if you don't have such tools, you can't neglect this task. Even if you do have access to these tools, periodic inventory counts are still going to be necessary. I'll post a link in the description to the corresponding post, which will have the video here and a summary on spreadsheetsforbusiness.com. And there you can download a copy of the My Spreadsheets Are Your Restaurant's Best Friend workbook. It'll have, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 different worksheets you can use. I covered all of those in my previous video about titled Why Spreadsheets Are Your Restaurant's Best Friend. In this one, we're going to focus, of course, on the inventory control spreadsheet, and this is what I'll be referencing throughout this video. Basically, how this works is you'll notice there are different fields here on the left where you can put the category for a particular item, the item name, of course, the unit of measure, quantity, cost, and it will automatically calculate your extended cost. So in this case, for example, if we want to add something else, category 4, this is going to be item 16. Let's say it was also in gallons, but we have 20 of them, cost $5 a piece. Here you can see the extended cost, the value of that inventory was automatically calculated. And over here under category 4 on the pivot table, item 16 was added with its total value. We scoot over here. You can see that the pivot table is going to calculate your grand total value of your inventory, and it's also subtotaled by each individual category. What should a restaurant inventory list look like? Well, touched on that just a moment ago. With the inventory control worksheet in the restaurant spreadsheets workbook, you'll notice that I had, 6 fields on there total. 5 of those are going to be critical for any restaurant inventory list. Those fields are item, which is the name of what's being counted, of course. The unit of measure, or UOM, is a consistent quantity that will be used for counting and costing. That's things like pounds, ounces, gallons, cans. It can really be whatever you want as long as it's consistent. The next field is quantity on hand, QOH. This is how many of the particular unit of measure the restaurant currently owns. Field after that is item cost. And what's important to note about item cost is you don't want to count quantity in one unit of measure and the cost in another. Again, that unit of measure needs to be consistent across the entire inventory list. Extended cost, finally, which is what was automatically counted on the restaurant spreadsheet. And that's quantity on hand times the item cost. This is going to be the total value of that particular inventory. Additionally, you can include other fields in your restaurant inventory list if they're appropriate. For example, category, of course, that was included on the inventory control worksheet, and that can be anything you want it to that allows you to group similar items together, add another layer of transparency to your inventory list. Things such as meat, vegetables, raw food, prepared food, etc. could be some categories that you might use. Another field that you might consider utilizing, particularly if you have more than one location, is the location. So when you review your inventory list, you know how much of what you have where. And really, you can use any other classification that will help you manage your inventory more consistently. Okay, so let's talk a little more about the restaurant inventory list. On the inventory list, you're going to want to fill out the critical fields for every item you own. If you must, it's okay to use multiple lines for the same item. An example of when you might do that is if you have the same item, but you've paid different costs for it. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can use one consistent cost across all your items, but that's an option. The pivot table functionality of the inventory list will be able to handle it. Your restaurant's point of sale and other types of software might be able to help you with inventory management. Depends on the software. Some are going to have more functionality than others. Some will track your inventory usage. Some might even track purchases too and keep running inventory levels. So cycle counting will always be necessary. This ensures that your inventory counts are accurate and you can meet demand and avoid waste. Employees, of course, are going to play an important part in inventory management. Consider giving them an incentive for accurate inventory counts. Explain to them the importance of accuracy. When cycle counting, maintain a consistent schedule and stick to it. Inventory items with high turnover should be counted more frequently than those with low turnover. Finally, remember to track waste and food loss, as I said, particularly if your software does not do it. During the hustle bustle of the workday, it might not be possible to accurately measure wasted quantities. Do your best to estimate them. Inventory amounts will be accurately adjusted next time that you cycle count. And if you're keeping track of your waste, the amount of the adjustments should be minimized. As I mentioned, utilize the food waste spreadsheet on the Why Your Spreadsheets Are Your Restaurant's Best Friend workbook. You can download that again by following the link in the description to the post on spreadsheetsforbusiness.com. Also, take advantage of other spreadsheets in the workbook, including scheduling template, vendor order sheet, daily prep list, inventory control, of course, food and recipe costing, food waste, and sales per day. Here's some more considerations regarding your restaurant inventory list. Only consumable items that you use to prepare food should be included in your inventory. Not every asset should be included there. Things such as flatware, cookware, glassware, etc. are assets, but they are not considered inventory. It's important to keep accurate records for those assets, but as I said, they are not inventory and don't belong on your inventory list. Inventory is what you sell to your customers. Again, make sure you're using a consistent unit of measure for your inventory items. Use whatever's easiest to track, whether it be pounds, gallons, ounces, cans, cases, flats, whatever. Just stay consistent. Doing so will ensure that costly errors in counts and valuation aren't made. Food costs are rapidly changing, so what costs should you use for them? Your point of sale or accounting system might track costs for you, so that's great. If not, it might make sense to assign a standard, which is also known as an expected, or an average cost to those inventory items. No matter what inventory cost you use, make sure you're relieving inventory on a first in, first out, also known as FIFO basis. For example, use your oldest inventory first, assuming that it's fit for consumption, of course. No other industry has to wrestle with the issues of spoilage more than the restaurant industry. So do what you can to avoid needless waste of inventory and inventory dollars. Again, the risk of beating a dead horse here, make sure your costs reflect your unit of measure. Don't count in one unit of measure and cost in another. Keep it consistent. Finally, one of the primary benefits of managing your restaurant inventory is that you can measure inventory days on hand. In order to do that, you must keep track of inventory usage on a daily basis. Inventory days on hand is going to equal inventory on hand divided by average daily usage. Simple. Assuming that you are meeting all of your customers' demand, not running out of stock on anything, then the lower your inventory days on hand, the better. BotKeeper handles the bookkeeping so you can focus on running your restaurant. BotKeeper calls itself the future of bookkeeping. Here with BotKeeper, you can get all the perks of an experienced bookkeeper, but at far lower cost. They provide clients with multi-level support. One customer stated, "Without their help, I have no idea how we would have gotten everything ready for our acquisition." If you're interested in spending more time in running your restaurant, managing your restaurant, than doing your bookkeeping, check out the link to BotKeeper in the description. Okay, let's address a couple of questions about how to make a restaurant inventory list. The first is, what challenges do restaurants have with managing inventory? As I talked about earlier, spoilage is one inventory problem that restaurants have a particular problem with. Many of the inventory items, by necessity, are going to have an extremely short shelf life. Accountability is another. So many different individuals handling and recording inventory, it can be difficult to ensure that quantity on hand in your software matches reality. Finally, running an inventory can hurt customer service for a restaurant more so than it can in other industries. Other businesses have the luxury of being able to put products on back order for a customer, or if it's a service they sell, being able to push out the service day. That's just not a luxury that restaurants have. These are just a few. There are many more unique challenges that restaurants face in managing inventory. Second question, how does one manage quality control and inventory control smartly in a restaurant for an owner who lives in another city? In a situation like this, the most critical thing is to find employees that can be trusted to manage inventory smartly. Also, while you want every employee to use best practices when it comes to inventory management, probably want to choose one trusted, emphasis on trusted, individual who will have ultimate accountability. Finally, which is the best software for inventory control in a restaurant? There are a lot of options out there. However, in a little bit of research that I did, there was one piece of software called Restaurant 365 that seemed to be pretty well regarded. Full disclosure, I've never used it myself, so I can't attest to its quality. In the little bit of searching that I did do, I never saw any negative feedback. Pricing for Restaurant 365 will run from $250 to more than $450 per month per location, depending on the level of service that you opt to take advantage of. Another thing that I noticed when researching restaurant software was that spreadsheets were often recommended. And of course, not surprisingly, that is what I would recommend, particularly if your restaurant operation is relatively small. Admittedly, they take some work to get set up, but one major benefit of using a spreadsheet is the ability to customize it to your exact needs. So again, feel free to click on the link in the description and download the inventory control spreadsheet along with all the other worksheets, and check out the Why Spreadsheets Are Your Restaurant's Best Friend posts and video. That's all I got. Thank you for watching, and thank you if you have already liked and or subscribed. If this video helped you to understand how spreadsheets can help you manage your restaurant, please consider liking. And if you're interested in keeping spreadsheets for business in your sidebar, subscribe. Thank you.